It's time for Ask Mike Mondays. Mike answers one listener's question every week. Here's Michael Becker and Paul Peebles.
Welcome to Ask Mike Mondays. I'm your host, Paul Peebles, National Underwriter for Old Capital. And joining me today, smartest guy in the room, Mr. Michael Becker.
Hey, Paul.
Michael, as you know, has 5,600 units that he has purchased, 27 properties, up to his eyeballs in non-recourse debt. Again, I don't know how you sleep at night, my friend.
Like a baby, right?
And has raised over $125 million. Michael is a former banker for a large national bank. And he went from being a loaner of money to an owner of money. And he has gone out and put together a huge portfolio for SPI for him and his investors. So, Michael, thanks for being in the podcast.
Yeah.
So what's going on in the Old Capital world these days?
We're getting closer now, a few months away from the upcoming second annual Capital Conference. Will be on September 13th at the AT&T Stadium. So the ticket prices, I believe, had just gone up, so or just about to go up. So make sure you go to oldcapitalpodcast.com if you guys want to sign up. Having Roger Staubach's going to be the keynote speaker, so we're really looking forward to that. It'll be great networking. Hopefully we'll have around 700 people there, so it'll be a great event to attend. It'll be the place to be for sure.
You have always believed in going out there to these live events and talking to folks. It's the only way that people will either invest in your deal or you can find other equity investors. Tell us a little bit more about your belief.
Yeah, no one's going to come to your house or your office and give you money or a deal, so you got to go out and get it. So we're going to have all the major brokers, and the Texas market should be there. So if you guys want to go out and get to know and meet a lot of the players in the brokerage space, as well as there'll be a ton of either other passive investors and plenty of sponsors there as well. So this is definitely an event to go and meet a bunch of people. And that's how you kind of grow your business. People do business when they know, like, and trust. And they're not going to know, like, and trust you unless they get to opportunity to meet you. So I'd highly encourage people to go to the oldcapitalpodcast.com and buy your tickets. They're going like crazy right now. All
right, Mike, here's a question for you from a listener. Is a buyer, broker, recommended for multifamily deals? What are the expectations and benefits the buyer will receive from a buyer broker? And what are the negative effects of a buyer broker?
So the buyer brokerage isn't quite as common, at least in the markets that I've been exposed to. They certainly do exist. There's certainly some benefits for them, but I'll kind of take it from here. Most of the transactions, there's only one broker involved, and the broker tends to represent the seller of the deal. So the seller tends to pay the commission for the broker. So the broker's fiduciary responsibilities technically to the seller. However, in these deals, the broker's pretty much just an intermediary. They're there to make sure that the deal is consummated and closed, and it doesn't happen unless they kind of work for both sides of it, kind of in practicality, even though they technically represent the seller. There are some cases, and there's a handful of them out there that do a good job that are kind of like buyer brokers, where they represent the purchaser in the deal. So I would say that in the markets that we are used to, it's different from the residential's 1 to 4 kind of single family space, where there tends to be buyer broker. There tends to be, like, say, a 6% commission when you sell your house, and the commission is split 3 and 3. So the buyer broker gets half of the commission, and the listing broker gets half the commission. In the space that we play in, it's very customary where if there is a buyer broker, that the listing agent, the broker that represents the seller, keeps the commission that the seller's going to close. There's typically not a split. So if there's a buyer broker, that's like an additional cost or additional fee that a buyer would add into the deal, and they would pay it kind of out of their pocket. So if you're going to have someone in, if you're new into the business and you need the representation, there's certainly a good service that can kind of help you shortcut the process, make sure you don't make any sort of major critical mistakes. Maybe the buyer broker represents you and they're well known in the area, and they give you some credibility that you might not already have in the space, to kind of give the seller and the seller's agent some comfort that you're the right person to select. But just know that whatever the compensation is going to be, that you likely going to have to build that in on your end of the deal as a purchaser of the property.
And that's absolutely correct. Again, it's a little bit different from single family, the 1 to 4 properties, where you'll split, a 6% commission. That is not what it is when it's in a $7-10 million transaction. There's not a 6% commission where 3% goes to the seller and 3% goes to the buyer's agent. That's not how it works. It usually is a lot lower commission. Maybe it's a 1 or a 2% sales commission for the listing agent. and then 0 would go to the representative of the person buying the property. So, if you're trying to do a syndication, I would probably get a buyer's broker at the beginning. Just use it as a line item expense to add into your total costs into the transaction. You're going to do rehab, and let's say that's $400,000. Let's say you have a buyer's broker, that's another $30,000, $35,000, or $40,000, or whatever that negotiated number is going to be. Just add it into your total expenses if you want somebody to actually hold your hand. If you've never done this before, again, I don't recommend trying to get into this by yourself. It's a team sport, but you may need to have a buyer's broker represent you in the first transaction or two.
Yeah, good advice. Definitely, there's nothing wrong with it, but it is customary that that's an expense borne by the purchaser. So make sure that you budget that in if you're looking to go that route.
Some great information, Mike. We appreciate it. Again, I'm Paul Peebles. That's Michael Becker, smartest guy in the room. Thanks for listening.